Hey folks, welcome. How you doing? All right, we're going to take a look at the structure, meaning this multi-dimensional holographic structure that we're in, this 15-dimensional time matrix that we're in, right? And before we begin, for those who may be involved in study pertaining to the structure, you may have come across that this is within sets of 15. As an example, the 15-dimensional time matrix that we're in has a parallel universe that would be a set. And we're going to get into that. We're going to explain that. We're going to take a look at what it means to be transcendent of the structure, what it means to be within it, purpose, reason, outside of the idea of seeing and experiencing self differently. Now, I'm not referring to that of the cosmic matrix, just the 15-dimensional time matrix. So the cosmic matrix would be the combination of the primal sound fields connected with the 15-dimensional time matrix. Okay? That's known as the cosmic matrix. The primal sound fields are also known as the energy matrix, or the ecodic, polaric, triadic, 3 levels. So the combination of those two is known as the cosmic matrix. So we're just going to focus mainly on the 15-dimensional time matrix, what it means to be within the hologram, because it's a holographic construct, okay? So let's begin at the beginning. Now, the Partikim unit is a complete integrated source consciousness, all right? This structure is from which this geomathematical complex design unfolds. So the Partikim unit is a complete integrated source consciousness, a structure through manifest intention. That is so important to understand what that means. That is something we're going to revisit. Okay, so a structure through manifest intention of source, or of any source, because there's more than one. Okay. And that's something else that we're going to get into. So it is the smallest unit of energy substance, that is to say, electrotonal unit of consciousness. The Partikim replicates through polarized equal and opposite expression, or phasing. Fission, fusion, phasing. These two equal and opposite expressions are known as the Partikim and the Partikim. Now, in reference to this being holographic and the parallel universe, this is how that takes place. The two equal opposite expressions being the Partikim and the Partikim being, well, it's many things. It's matter, it's magnetic, it actually, the polarization, it leans towards the idea of what we refer to as being feminine, okay, energy. There's other more appropriate terms for that, but mainly we're going to look at the idea of vibration or pre-sound. And we're going to look at the Partikim as oscillation or pre-light. So what's going on there is a flash sequence or a pulse of on and off. Right? So think of the vibration as being the off position. Think of the oscillation as being the on position. So when it goes off, that's the Partikim universe. That's the parallel universe, right? And obviously when it goes to Partikim or comes on, then that's the Partikim universe. And these things are important to understand in relationship to the sets of 15. All right? So this one set, this is what's taking place here. I know it sounds oversimplistic. We're going to take a look. Actually, we're going to do a little exercise that allows you to see how this is actually done. What I'm referring to is creating or manifesting intention within a structure. Yeah. Like I said, we're going to get into these other subjects pertaining to, is there more than one source? And who is that? All these things that are going to allow for you to have a more broader perspective, and especially those who are here on Earth. I mean, you don't remember anything. And that's not a natural process. Regardless of how many NDE experiences that you hear as like that's a normal thing, that is not a normal thing. And, I'm going to digress here a little bit to kind of put a cap on that, then we're going to move forward. But here's this. If you take a look at the Metatronic family or collective, you can see that they're sourcing out of the ecotic. In other words, the first level within the energy matrix, they're sourcing out from that. Do you realize what that can mean? So you have a whole lot of things perpetrated within this universal construct that plays itself out as being source, because what it's doing is utilizing everything that's within it. It may be in a fallen condition, but it knows how things work enough to know how to manipulate them, that's for sure, which makes them completely super genius compared to anybody here. Just saying. All right, so it's important to have a broader perspective for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them. So anyhow, let's take a look at the idea of what it means to be in the hologram in respect to the way we view things, right? So consciousness, we'll use the word consciousness because it relates, again, to the structure itself, but who we are is transcendent. Therefore, we're really not consciousness. We're experiencing ourselves within the construct through, that's part of the program from what I can understand. What it means to be an individuation of source as an example. Okay, we're going to take a look at that before we get into the hologram thing, because this is really important, because it's all plays part. So the individuation. An individuation of consciousness manifests through the omnipolarity of the partikai. All right? Omnipolarity meaning we have the partikai, which is the reintegration buffer field, or think of it as the neutral point, and think of the partikum and the partiK being, within that triunity. So that's the omnipolarity aspect. So through the omnipolarity aspect of the partikai, each individuation has its own unique tone. Why is that? Because it's part of the structure. How is it that you become an individuation of source? Well, you're in the construct which is the full, complete, integrated source consciousness. It's through the manifest intention of that being. Therefore, you are in its construct, so therefore you're going to take on its attribute of its design. You're taking on the design of that being. And the way that it and others can experience itself is through the program. That's why you are an individuation of source. Now, does that mean that you are specifically source? No, it does not. But you become unified. You are unified as if you were. I remember seeing a video about, NDE experience, and this being talks about when they went out of body. Long story short is that they ended up merging with this being that was like a sun, and it was their understanding that that was source. But based on their description, they were explaining to me, based on what I know, as being the fifth harmonic universe or the primal light fields. And that is the Rishi body, which is a collective. And of course, if you reunite with that through the structure, this design, this hologram, through that structure, you're going to take on the attribute or that of source as an individuation. But here's the question. Are you transcendent of this structure? Are you transcendent of this multidimensional creation? And the answer to that simply is yes. Remember I mentioned the idea that there's more than one source? We are all co-creators. That includes the source of this construct. And prime creators playing different roles in order to perpetuate creation. And this is the way that it's done. each structure or construct or manifest intention is based on that particular prime creator or architect, if you will. And each one of these structures, meaning each creation, universal creation, is different from one another. This one so happens to be sound and light. There's other structures that are not like that. And the only way that you can experience them and know them is to enter into that design and experience self according to those design parameters. So let's take a look at the hologram. So think of this physical body that we're in, or in any given aspect of this universal construct. Think of it as a projector. That's a really good analogy. I heard this analogy and I think it's very fitting. It says, think of this body or the vessel that you're in, regardless what type of form it is. Think of it as being a film projector. And the consciousness experience that we're having, that part of us that is transcendent of the structure itself, think of that as being entering the projector as a reel of film. And that reel of film is being played through the projector or the body. So we have a living design. Remember, everything is consciousness. Consciousness is an energy. Energy is conscious. And so that's what's making up this design. And we're going to get into that in a second here. But note that this is a living design, that is the body, made for holographic projection. Another way to look at this is you as a living being are entering and merging with another living being, and you're entering into its world and its design, the world it created. But understanding that the world that you experience is the being itself. So consciousness enters into this projector, this machine, in order to play out its story. So it enters into the projector, the film begins to play. How this happens is because it's coded. There's a coded system, and we come to understand it as being neurological in structure, right? These processes of DNA codes and electric impulses. So the individuation, the consciousness, will perceive the outside of itself as three-dimensional matter through images, events, all those things that are programmed into the DNA, into the program, right? This coding system. The holographic experience is had because it's held within the DNA coding. So the DNA's coding that we come to understand as being biological here on Earth actually runs through the whole construct on all the levels. It's a coding system, right? We're referring to code. So this enables you to experience self differently, right? So the focus really needs to be on consciousness and the creative process. The core substance of the cosmos. And now we already covered what the cosmos is. The cosmos is the combination, okay? As I mentioned earlier, we were just going to touch in on the 15-dimensional time matrix, but this is going to bleed over into the primal sound fields or the energy matrix, okay? It's going to do that. So the core substance of the cosmos is consciousness. So far, that's a given, right? So thought is an attribute of consciousness. All right? Consciousness is energy. Energy is conscious. Consciousness designs the program. So we're going to look at the perspective of the source. So the source for the program. Remember, we referred to the idea of the manifest intention. Now that's what we're going to get into now. All right? So consciousness designs the program which provides a body or projector to experience or see itself differently. Again, consciousness is energy. Energy is conscious. So this mathematical program is conscious. And we already covered that. You enter into this and you experience this because it is the being that you're experiencing, because it's not just objects, it's actually the being. All of it's partikai. All of it is partikai, all right? From that structure, from everything which unfolds, is that integrated source consciousness, right? So, again, consciousness is energy, energy is conscious, so this mathematical program is conscious. Again, that is to say it is a complete integrated system of the source consciousness intention that created it, right? So think of creating the program as a process of precise, detailed visualization of a perpetual motion design, a blueprint, if you will, which now can become an extension of you as a being, and through subdivision of one's consciousness, this individuated structure can now hold the program of that visualized creation, which now can perpetually duplicate an individuated, complete, integrated consciousness coded system. Now, what's the requirement for this? Endless energy allows for this, because you can hold that structure. So consciousness is energy, energy is conscious. When you have that perpetual ability to hold a visualization, it becomes manifest, and then you can subdivide it. In this case, we're referring to structure. The partikai is a structure, right? So here's an exercise that you can do. Think of creating the program as a process of precise, detailed visualization. For this particular exercise, we don't need to be exactly precise. We just need an image. Let's just think of a box. Think of a box, a small box. Think of yourself being able to go inside the box. You know, see yourself inside the box. Now see yourself as becoming the box. Okay, so within the box, now you're at the box. Okay, you are the box. So now what you do is you place something in the box, something personal to you. Whether it's a thought, whether it's an object, whether, it doesn't really matter. What you've done is just extended yourself as being the box. And now you have something that's really, that identifies you within it. And you've integrated that within the box. Okay, that's an extension of you. Okay, so you have that. Now you're going to contemplate duplicating that box. Duplicating, popping up. Just, right? That is a very crude, example of what is going on here. But think of it as having the endless amount of energy to be able to think of anything in a most complex way, in the most in-depth, with no limitations to it. Think of yourself as being able to do that, and you can see how relative this is based on that condition. And what I'm saying is that you are that. But you have limitations here based only on your integration within this source consciousness field. So there's a limitation because you have merged with it in order to experience its particular design in a very multidimensional way, which is a normal expression for our who and what we are. We become whatever we want to become. That's the reason why there's so many different types of constructs. It's not limited. We're limitless. You become limited in order to experience yourself differently. Note that we have limited ourselves here on purpose within this construct. From the bigger perspective of things, which sometimes can be very difficult to accept, on a soul level, you can't sit there and say, well, I'm going to have this, I'm going to go into this, in this family, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. that's a generalization. You know that's not how it's going to turn out. That's what you had in mind, but things change really quick. Things shift because other individuations and other things and events and everything shift, which causes things to change, and things don't turn out the way that you had in mind. And that was part of the journey. Anyhow, so I digress. Let's go back to the subject at hand. That is the hologram, right? This universal multidimensional holographic construct. So what appears to be solid or solidity or density is determined by the relationship between the consciousness of the observing form and the consciousness of which the forms are made. So nothing is truly manifest. It only appears to be manifest due to the refraction of consciousness within the energetic relationship inherent to the holographic template, which is the original thought form construct upon which the universal structure is perpetually created. The experience is real, okay? But yet it's not. It's an illusion. And the dream state being is just another extension of the holographic experience, right? So obviously, experiences can be shared. Certain things like suffering or whatever are individually experienced, right? The reason for this is that the individual experience geographically perceives only portions of the dimensional unified field mathematical geometrical program encoded with one's personal mark shield. This goes back to the idea of individuation. We touched on that a little bit earlier. The idea of coming into it, taking on this design, so on and so forth. So there, you have a very specific ride based on pulse rate frequency that you're identified as being within the construct. So again, only portions of the dimensional unified field mathematical geometrical program encoded with one's personal mark shield, which also includes species, tribal, planetary, galactic, universal shields aspect of the personal Cathara grid and DNA. All right, so the primal life force currents continually carry pulses of that individuated consciousness through the transduction sequence of the Cathara grid and the DNA template, which allows for the manifest experience. Are you following this? Because this is actually, you look at it and you go, man, this is really a cool design. It's individually suited as well as it is collectively. It's very, very cool. So within the second video, because I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I've carried on way too long. But hopefully you got something from this. Hopefully, We're going to get into next, not right now because it's gone on way too long, what are holographic inserts. So we're going to get into that within the next video. So blessings to you. And remember, you are the love that you have always been. Don't let those words pass you by. Embrace those, okay? Become that love that you are. Because that allows for transcendence of everything. It really does. So, all right, folks. Peace. See you next time.